Good morning, evening, and afternoon, everybody. This is To Be Continued here with a different type of video. We're doing a what if scenarios prediction, and this is what if Donald Trump won 2020. So I'm kind of been curious about this, and you know what? I'm gonna make a video. So before we start, we're gonna go over through kind of a small what if and the parameters of this whole prediction before jumping into the map. So here are the conditions of this scenario. So one, obviously, Trump won 2020. Now two, the Democrats still held the House in 2020. Trump wouldn't make the Republicans gain the House back. I doubt that happened. There will still be some pushback in 2020 or not. This could also be Democrats barely holding the House, and the Senate will kind of remain the same as it was. Then 2022 it'll become a blue trickle. Democrats will still hold the Senate and keep the Senate tied. Because if you look, if Trump won 2020, the Democrats would be in a very different situation. They would most likely gain a lot more seats than they have, and would be in a more position of power. Because guess Trump in this hypothetical 2020 second term is not going to be the same as the current second term, because he's going to come in with a little bit of a less, or it's going to be like less popular in his starting off in the 2020 second term, and this could translate into more Democratic gains. So then, for Trump cabinet remains unchanged, so the Trump doesn't get drained. We see still a lot of pushback within the cabinet, and essentially Trump does not really get stuff done in the second term. And as Five says, Trump's agenda is hampered by both external and internal resistance. Basically, it's not the Trump of 24. When not, the 2020 second term hypothetical Trump is not going to ram through executive orders. So then, number 6, the 24 Republican primary was brutal. I'm going to put that in these words because the primary, I think, will go down to two people this time, Mike Pence and then Ron DeSantis. And I don't see Trump jumping in the primary and endorsing one or the other. But I do see, as we'll get to scenario, that I will have one that will win, and I'll explain why later on. But it will be brutal. And in 7, Ukraine-Russia war happens in either the early spring of 24 or after the election in the winter of 24. Now, Trump has said that if he was in office, he would prevent the war. I slightly disagree with that. I think the war would have been delayed, as either Putin will want to would launch his invasion either before the upcoming election or after, knowing that whoever's going to go in office next will have to deal with it, and you won't have to deal with Trump anymore. So I'm going to go on to the hypothetical Trump winning map of 2020. So here we go. So here I have the hypothetical 2020 victory map. As you see, I do have Trump barely winning Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I think these 4 are his path to victory. Joe Biden does win Michigan and barely wins Nevada. I think it's just enough to push Trump over the edge. It is a very, a lesser victory. Biden still gets the popular vote win. So thus, Trump's going to enter in this term with the same problems. People are going to say, abolish the electoral college still. He won't, per se have been given a mandate like he was in 24 in our timeline. So now, here on to the actual prediction. So here is the prediction. So I'm going to start with the Republican nominee. And as you see, I have chosen DeSantis as the winner of the primary. For lack of the better words, I think the MAGA base would probably drift towards DeSantis in a DeSantis versus Pence Republican primary. I think they're seeing more as the MAGA adjacent and more closer to Trump. Well, Pence as even though he's the vice president, he would kind of still be seen as the swamp and kind of. We could see a similar situation as currently where the base kind of doesn't like Pence, but they're kind of more. But you won't see the hatred that brewed after the actual 2020 election. So anyway, for the Democrat, it'll be probably Gavin Newsom, because the 24 Democrat primary would probably have a lot more in it, because obviously it's not Biden or Kamala. I highly doubt Kamala, even if Kamala did ran, she'll probably still lose the primary because she'll be seen as the losing VP ticket of the 2020. They'll probably go with more Gavin Newsom, the kind of staple of going against Trump. And I think he'll probably choose Gretchen Whitmer as the VP, another Rust Belt governor who can also be seen as another wall against the Trump agenda. So, before we start with the prediction, we can go over some parameters. So, like always, if you're, seen my other prediction videos, I'm going to use these parameters. Now, I've changed a little bit around, but anyway, safe would be 13 to 15 points. Likely would be 9 to 12 points. Lean would be 4 to 8 points. And tilt would be 0.5 to 3 points. So for this prediction, we're going to start with the safe Democrat states. Washington, Oregon, California, I think would be close to the 13-point mark because obviously, even though Gavin is the governor of California, the way he is historically mismanaged the state could cause him deal black, but not as much as would needed to flip the state. So Hawaii, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Vermont, Maine, Nebraska second, and Maine's first, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, DC, Virginia, and that is it. Because one thing to kind of explain about this whole thing is, this is not the same 24 as the main current 24. There's not going to be that many shifts up in New York or New Jersey to move them close. And also, we got to point out that, Gavin Newsom's record as California's will be a kind of a dirty stain on him and could, affect some areas. But anyways, here's to the safe Republican. Alaska, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Nebraska's remaining, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Illinois, and Maine second, and Florida. Because one of the big reasons is I think DeSantis could probably produce some of the gains Trump made in Florida, maybe a little bit more. So that's why I'm putting Florida safe. It will probably be the most right trending in the country. And unfortunately, I'm kind of sacrificing trends up in the Northeast for the South. So now for likely Democrat, that would be New Mexico, Maine at large, and in New Hampshire, we obviously got anti-incumbency bias in New Hampshire. Also, I think maybe more likely Whitmer could appeal up there. Newsom could theoretically jack it down to tilt, but to be safe, it would be likely. Likely Republican would be Iowa, Ohio, and in Texas. Now, we're seeing a different scenario. Ohio would most likely still have 2 Democrat senators. So thus you could see maybe some left wing, trends in Ohio, especially with Gretchen Whitmer being a Rust Belt governor. And that could be a huge factor. Now we got lean Democrat. That would be Nevada, and then Michigan. Obviously, Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of Michigan. I think this will highly benefit this ticket. And I think also Nevada, it will not have the same Republican trends as the current. But we could see some bleeding due to its proximity to California. Now for a likely lean Republican, Florida, North Carolina, and then Arizona, where I can see some gains in Arizona. It'll be most likely the fact that Gavin Newsom's the Democrat nominee that could turn the majority voters off in Arizona. As you can see, some of the more California transplants, who fled the state, like we don't want them nationally. And then Georgia, North Carolina. Georgia, the big reason is there's not a person of color in the Democrat ticket, so that there could be a little bit less motivation in the Atlanta suburbs. And in North Carolina, it's kind of obvious. Now the tilt. I'm gonna give 2 scenarios. Wisconsin, tilt D, and then Pennsylvania, tilt D. Newsom will win 276 to 262. It'd be a very narrow victory, but most likely, if this was a map, it'll be most likely because it was Gretchen Whitmer that did all the legwork, and not Gavin Newsom as a more Rust Belt aligned ticket. Would benefit because, as you see, DeSantis chose an Iowa governor, not really a Rust Belt state. Now, for the second scenario, we could have Wisconsin going to Republicans or Pennsylvania. Either one, it would still be a narrow victory, and that's where the paths will diverge. Whether or not can Gavin Newsom get over the hump and the image around him being governor of California, and how much leftover anti-Trump bias would be, especially in an alternate 2020 second term, and how much can DeSantis kind of offset this. So anyway, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe. Really help it out. Hopefully this channel can grow further. We'd really like to see that. Thank you.